Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by.
It's Ham Radio with Neil Rapp. Here we go. Welcome to Ham Talk Live. Call in, let's talk. Neil's your guy. Ham Talk Live. Here we go on Ham Talk Radio.
And good evening, everyone. This is Ham Talk Live, episode number 1. Dr. Scott Wright, K0MD, recorded on Thursday, February 18th, 2016. And I am the aforementioned host, Neil Rapp. My call is WB9VPG. And I want to thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight on the show, you'll have your chance to get to know me a little bit better. And then my good friend Dr. Scott Wright, K0MD, will join us. Scott's a well-known contester, and he's been on several DXpeditions. So he will join us, and we'll talk about his experiences with ham radio. And during the last part of the show, we'll be taking your calls live. One of the things we want to do with the show is hear from you, the listener. So some nights we're going to just ask some questions of our special guest and get to know the people in our hobby and service. But as the show grows, we hope to have some nights where we just take some calls and talk about the latest happenings in ham radio. We have some fabulous guests lined up for the next few weeks, and as we get closer to the Dayton Hamvention, we will have a preview of some of the activities there. And I do want to mention one breaking news item. Did see a notice that W1AW was off the air today. So if you missed W1AW bulletins and code practice, that kind of thing, due to some unforeseen circumstances, they were off the air, but they'll be back on tomorrow. So I wanted to pass that along in case you didn't know that. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Ham Talk Live. I want to take a few minutes just to let you get to know me in case you don't already, so you have an idea of some of the things we may be talking about on the show. I don't want to take too much time. If you listen to the demo episode on the website, that tells a whole lot more about me and how I got into ham radio and that kind of thing. It's on hamtalklive.com if you want to know more about that. But the short version is that I became a ham when I was 5 years old, and at the time was the youngest ham in the world. And I upgraded to technician class at 6, and general at 7, advanced at 9, and extra at 18. And so ham radio has been a part of just about all of my life that I remember. I became interested in repeaters and started helping operate a repeater network, the Ears Wide Area Repeater Network. And one of the things I've been involved with most is teaching young people. I teach high school chemistry at Bloomington High School South in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm the Amateur Radio Club sponsor there, and we have a great club thanks to some great students, great parents, and some donors and sponsors. So if you've helped us along the way, we want to say thanks for all of that. At the club, we do some contesting. That's one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit tonight with Scott. And we also do some fox hunting, some project building, and just learning about what RST is and what universal time is and those kinds of things to make people aware of ham radio. So personally, I enjoy FM. I like some of the VHF and UHF stuff, and APRS. I also enjoy HF and DXing and contesting and some PSK 31. I can do CW, but it's been a long time since I've really used it. I did pass my 20 words a minute code for my extra, and I still remember it and still teach it a little bit, but just haven't made use of it in a while. So if you have any questions about any of those things, I'll do my best to answer those, but perhaps the best thing I can do is point you to the right person to ask. Being in ham radio for this long, and some of the fame that I had at an early age anyway, I've been pretty blessed to know many knowledgeable and helpful hams over the years. And tonight's guest is no exception. Dr. Scott Wright, K0MD from Rochester, Minnesota, is our guest this evening. Scott works for the Mayo Clinic. He teaches cardiology with them, and that often takes him abroad where his ham radio can go with him. Scott is an excellent contester. He's been on some DXpeditions, and Scott and I met when we were kids. We went to the FCC test session in Louisville, Kentucky. Back in those days, you had to take all your exams from an FCC examiner. And so they would travel a few times a year. They would go to different federal buildings around the country, and Louisville, Kentucky was the closest one for me. And so we went down there quite a few times to take tests, and Scott was down there too, and I'll let him tell that story. I was only 7 at the time, so he remembers it a lot better than I do. But I wanted Scott to be the first guest on the show because Scott's done a lot in just recent years, especially to motivate and support the school club efforts, but also because we do have a long history, and thought that might make it a little easier for you to get to know where I'm coming from with the show. So with that, Scott, welcome to Ham Talk Live.
Thank you very much, Neil. It's a pleasure to join you, and it's an honor to be your first guest. And congratulations on launching a new program. This is a tremendous thing, and I'm glad to see that you've done it. And we've both come a long way since we met at the FCC office in Louisville, Kentucky, many years ago, taking our general class examinations. I remember it, though, like it was just a few days ago, and meeting you there as well. And it was great to reconnect at Dayton now about 8 or 9 years ago and to see each other again. I remember this was the third time I had taken the general exam. Neil, I don't know about you, but it took me 3 tries, and I passed it on the 3rd try. And I remember meeting you because you were a very friendly little guy. You came up and introduced yourself and handed me a QSL card that introduced yourself as the world's youngest ham. And I was quite impressed at all you had done because you got licensed at age 5, as I recall, and I got licensed right around age 12 or 13. So if you were 7, then I must have been 14 or 15 taking the exam that day. And it was always intimidating. Right. Always intimidating to go to the FCC office, wasn't it? It's much easier now.
Yeah, what I remember was that this really tall guy with blonde hair that always wore this white business shirt and never cracked a smile. Never. And I'd taken the tests in Indianapolis a couple of times, but mostly at Louisville. And I, too, took 3 tries on my general class. So we had the exact same number. But he just didn't crack a smile. And he was pretty intimidating, to be honest. And after a while, which I was going with my mom and dad, they were getting upgrades and licenses at the same time. My mom got her license a year later, and Dad and I were working on upgrades. We actually ran into the guy in the basement of the federal building. We would go and eat breakfast down in the basement of this federal building, and he came down to grab something to eat real quick, and he came over and said, "Aren't you guys the Rapp family?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I remember, giving you tests and everything." So this really intimidating guy that we were scared to death of Was really friendly, and we got to know him. His name was Jerry. And we got to know him, and after a while, he kind of started playing around. Whenever I would pass, he would hide the paperwork because he knew I was sitting there watching, waiting for, to see if I passed or not. And so he'd play a trick on me and saying, well, gee, I'm really sorry, but you passed. And so I actually was able to call on him for some help with some QRM we had going on, and I was actually able to call him, and anything I needed, man, I tell you what, I gave Jerry a call, and he was on it. He knew exactly what to do, and knew who he was dealing with, and so we got to see a side of Jerry that a lot of people didn't get to see, but I suspect it was the same guy there that you had.
I think that's right. And I had come up about 3.5 hours from southern Kentucky, where I live, to take this exam because I'd been to Knoxville, Tennessee twice. And my parents did not bring me that day. They had taken me the previous 2 times, but a retired pharmacist in my hometown had decided to get his license. His son, who was a pharmacist as well, was licensed, had gotten me interested in the hobby. And so Mr. Burgess was his name, and his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son, the pharmacist who was a ham, had driven the both of us up to Louisville. And I distinctly remember getting home that evening, and my mother came to pick me up, and she asked Mr. Burgess, how did it go? And he said, well, it must not have been too hard because Scott and another little boy passed, and I failed. And he just didn't realize how much, I guess, we had studied for it, Neil, and taken it a few times. And I don't know if he ever upgraded his license after that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
His son is still on the air, WA4OJT, Jim Burgess, now somewhere in Florida, Southwest Florida. And Jim and I stay in touch on email. And his father has subsequently passed away. But that was a memorable time. And, for those who don't remember those days or never had them, we had to first take the Morse code, and it was 13 words a minute, and you had to pass that. And if you passed it good, you could go on to take the written. And if you didn't pass it, you were done. And even if you failed the written, you did not get credit for passing the code. You had to take it each time. So you probably remember, I working to keep your code speed up and to make sure that it was faster than the 13 words per minute so that you would have no trouble passing it. Because as I recall, in those days, they didn't always have headphones for us to use. I remember one testing session where they just played a cassette recorder, and if the speaker was loud enough, you heard it, and if it wasn't, you didn't.
Yeah, and some of those headphones that they did have were not high quality.
No. And of course, this is a totally different era than we are today. And those were the days. Those were tough days to get to. And but like you, and to think about it, for 2 young guys who had never had algebra or physics, the general class exam was pretty tough. And I marvel now that we were able to pass it at that age without ever having had any high school physics or algebra. I remember in high school, when I took algebra, that I finally understood Ohm's law, because if E equals IR, then E divided by I equals R. I had never understood why that was the case taking the exam until I had algebra. Then it made total sense.
Yeah, I was the same way, and it made chemistry and which I ended up going into and physics a lot easier because I knew what mega and kilo were, and I'd already learned how to do E equals IR just with a calculator, and so it really helped me be more confident of what I was doing in school.
The same for me. And of course, it opened the world for me. I tell people today, young physicians that I have who are training with me, when I grew up, we didn't have the internet. I grew up in Appalachia, And you grew up in a very rural part of southwest Indiana, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have a lot of outside activities, and ham radio opened the world up for me and probably did for you. And I'm grateful for that. I met some really neat people. I remember one contact when I was a teenager. I was on the 15 meters or 20 meters one afternoon, likely 15, talking to a guy named Tom, who had a very funny call sign, a Victor Papa 8, I believe, VP8TC, as I recall, or maybe VP6TC, I forget his call now. It was Tom Christensen from Pitcairn Island. And my dad passed through my bedroom and heard me talking to him. And Tom had mentioned he was on the Pitcairn Island. And so my dad pulled up a chair and sat down and listened to the rest of the contact. And then he started asking me to ask Tom questions. And I did, and didn't really follow the line of thought or questioning that my dad was pursuing. And when I got off the radio, my dad said, "You don't recognize who you just spoke to. He's a celebrity." I said, "Really?" And he explained to me about Mutiny on the Bounty and Fletcher Christian, Tom's father, and all that had happened, and then all that Tom had done and was doing in the Pitcairn Island. And I'm sure you, like I, found in the 70s and early 80s that ham radio opened the world, and it made the world a much different place. And, of course, today I've traveled to nearly all the continents of the world, and I still find that ham radio is one of the unifying forces that allows us to cross cultures and backgrounds and all kinds of demographic criteria to just have a connection and a bond with people that we meet who otherwise would be total strangers. It's been great for my career, and it's been great for opening doors when I travel the world. You know, Neil, one of the most enjoyable times I had with the hobby was in 2007. I was invited to speak in Beijing by the People's Republic of China as part of a delegation from the Mayo Clinic to talk about healthcare, the future, healthcare reform, things like that. And I had asked if I could get a radio license, and they helped arrange for me to get a radio license in China. And I was able to operate with B1 Zulu, B1Z, the Beijing Amateur Radio Club, and do the CQWPX sideband contest, not sideband, CW contest in May of 2007. And it was really neat to meet the hams who had just been to Scarborough Reef, 2 or 3 of the Chinese hams who had been, and to see them and to see their club and to see what a station they had. And I subsequently wrote a nice article for DX Magazine about that. And last year at Dayton, Fan Bin, Bravo Alpha 1 Radio Bravo, came to Dayton, and I was able to host him and 2 others from China, the PRC, at Dayton, at the DX dinner, and to return the hospitality. And it sure makes the world a much smaller place when you have a hobby that connects you with people you would never have the opportunity to meet and enjoy developing a friendship with.
Absolutely, that's some great things, and I've met a lot of great people along the way, and it's a great thing that ham radio has done. I want to mention to the listeners here, we had originally planned for a 30-minute show, and just today we switched that to 45 minutes, and it looks like that was a wise decision. So we will be here for about another 25 minutes or so, but we need to take a break. It's time to pay a few bills here on the show, but we'll be back, and we'll talk some more. And then in the final segment, we'll take your calls with Dr. Scott Wright, K0MD, right after this word from one of our sponsors, Tower Electronics, right here on Ham Talk Live. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. Tower Electronics has been the ham's dime store since 1978, bringing connectors, antennas, cables, and other parts to the world. Scott and Jill travel the country bringing their store to you at Hamfest, but you can also order online at pl-259.com or by calling 920-435-2973. Stock up on those supplies like PL259 and end connectors, audio cables, mobile antennas, and ham sticks. Their silver-plated end connectors are even in use on the International Space Station. Tower Electronics is a dealer for MFJ, Comet, Daiwa, OPEC, Workman, and Ham Pro technologies. Tower Electronics, online at pl-259.com, proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
Oh, yeah. You're talking ham radio, baby. You're listening to Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
And welcome back to Ham Talk Live. We'd like to thank Scott and Jill over at Tower Electronics for sponsoring the show tonight. And that way we can bring you Ham Talk Live each Thursday night. Be sure to listen every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on hamtalklive.com. Also, check out our Facebook page and our Twitter feed. Just search for Ham Talk Live. Dr. Scott Wright, K0MD, has been kind enough to join us on our first show this evening. And we were talking about some of the DXing in China. And why don't you tell us about some of your work in Chile and the recent trip down to Turks and Caicos?
Oh, thanks, Neil. I'd be delighted to. In 1999, I made my first trip to Chile, having met a cardiologist from Chile the year before in Ecuador when I was speaking at a conference. I'd never been to Chile and had never really been into that part of Latin America, so to speak. But it was a September day, and I went down for a week, and we became quite good friends and decided to continue to try to bring speakers from North America, including myself, down. And over the last 15, 16, 17 years now, I've made about 30 trips between Minnesota and Chile, and have developed a lot of really good friendships. In 2007 or so, I decided to really try to combine ham radio with some of my business travel, because I would end up being in Chile and having some afternoons and evenings with several hours of free time. And so I bought a vertical dipole from Force 12. N6 Bravo Tango has designed a number of really compact antennas that cover 40 through 10 meters that radiate very efficiently. And I had an ICOM 7000 radio that was fairly lightweight, so I could pack the radio and power supply and antenna tuner in my briefcase, put the antenna and some coaxial cable in a golf bag, like a golf club bag, and would check it on the airline, and have operated from 2 hotels there. And several years later, one of my children at that time was doing a science fair project and needed an idea about a science fair project. And I said, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you consider doing some computer modeling to see what countries I should be able to work during the CQ Worldwide CW contest, because I was going down for a November meeting. And then let's get on the air and work the contest and just see how many countries I can work, observe to expected, so to speak, and whether the propagation models are effective or not. And she said, no, that's really not that interesting to me, Dad. I don't want to do it, but thanks anyway. And then about 3 weeks later, she said, I mentioned your idea to some guys at school, and they think it's a pretty cool idea, and they really want to come with you to do this as a project. So do you mind if I come? And I'll do this as a project. I can't think of anything else. And I said, no, I don't mind. We'll do it. So she and I left one Thanksgiving day, much to my wife's chagrin, and we flew to Chile for this conference, which would begin on a Saturday. And the hotel actually set my antenna up on the roof. It's kind of funny because in Chile there are no stairwells up to the roof of hotels. You have to actually climb from the top floor up. And so the hotel has, since 2008 or 9, has been providing service individuals to just put my antenna up for me. And we did the contest, and she did very well in the science fair with her poster. She did a nice poster and won the regional science fair in southern Minnesota with that idea. And on the last day that I was there operating, I met a ham on the air from Uruguay, and I said, I'm coming to Uruguay day after tomorrow. I'm going to speak there at a meeting. And he said, are you? So I actually went to his home on the way from the airport to the hotel in Uruguay and chatted and operated with him a little bit and got to know him, and we became good friends. And he's an American expat, retired airline pilot who now was living in Montevideo, Uruguay. But since then, I've had the yearn to contest, and so I've done several CQ Worldwide contests from Chile. In 2015, I was able to operate from North America on Friday night from the contest. I flew to Chile on Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon, I spent the last 4 hours of the contest operating at CE2AWW's QTH in Reñaca, Chile. So I had 2 entries, Neil, for CQ Worldwide CW. Neither score was worth mentioning. They both were pretty low. But one was a single band entry from Chile, and the other, I think, was a single band entry from North America. But it was kind of fun to actually be able to do both contests. And I enjoy it because, operating from Chile, because from my hotel room, it's a nice way to spend part of the evening. And you can work Europe across North America into Asia as the sun sets. And I can follow the Terminator line from the central Russia and Eastern Europe, and then follow it essentially north and west as it crosses into northern Europe, and then northwestern Europe, and then it crosses into North America. The U.S. stations become quite powerful. This is all without a beam. It's all with a vertical dipole, which is a very efficient antenna, weighs about 5 or 8 pounds, that I take in a golf club case, and a little radio running 100 watts of power. And I've probably worked, I want to say 70 countries now, confirmed in logbook from Chile, just doing it in the evenings and occasionally on weekends. And in fact, I've now left my antenna that I took down. I've left that in Chile, and I just bring a radio with me when I want to operate.
Excellent.
And it's just a lot of fun, and you can really do this if you have any work travel, whether it's in U.S. or Central America, the Caribbean, Hawaii, or Chile, or South America, Europe. Do it. It's so easy to get a license. And I've also started contesting now in the Caribbean with W0GJ, Glenn Johnson, and others from Minnesota. We have pretty tough winters in the northern Midwest, so we need a little break from the minus 20-degree weather and the 20-plus inches of snow a month, it seems. So I've enjoyed going to Jody's place in Turks and Caicos, and I was supposed to be there this weekend, but this year I couldn't make the contest there, so I'll be on from here. And but some of my teammates are down right now operating, and will be Victor Papa 5 Kilo in the contest. I've had a contest call of Victor Papa 5 Sierra, BP5S, S picked for Scott. And I've also operated with Glenn, Victor Papa 5 Hotel, BP5H. And with Glenn and Mark Indorf, a few years ago, we placed #1 in the world as a multi-single station high power from the Caribbean. And it's really a hoot to place in the top 1 or 2 worldwide in a contest. You can't imagine the pileups and the runs from the Caribbean. We frequently have QSO rates of 200 to 400 QSOs an hour on sideband and 100 to 200 an hour on CW for the entire 48 hours of the contest, Neil. You can get a lot of ham radio activity in 48 hours.
I'd say.
It's a lot of fun, It's just a lot of fun. And I have a little shout out to ICOM North America. Ray Novak in the past has been very nice about letting us use some loaner equipment at times. We were we had the 7600 when it was relatively new and tested it in the contest. And Glenn and I subsequently bought 7600s after using them in the contest. And so we appreciate all the support that we've gotten and from some of the manufacturers to help us with contesting activity and to really take it to the next level.
Yeah, that always helps when you have good equipment and some support on those kinds of things. And so we want to get a shout out there to Ray. I know he does a lot with youth and the Boy Scouts and a lot there for ICOM. So thanks for all you do, and as well as some of the other manufacturers that help out with those things. Let's talk a little bit about Contest University at Dayton, and we kind of got together. You gave us an inspiration to get involved there, and so tell us a little bit about what happened there with Contest University last year.
Well, I have been going to Contest University for several years. I find it to be really one of the best things happening at the Dayton Hamvention. Tim Duffy and his team of premier contest operators put on a fabulous one-day workshop on how to be a better HF operator and contester. And I learned more about propagation, antenna design, operating tactics, station management, ergonomics, from the day I spend there than almost anything else I do. And you have been the mentor and advisor of probably the premier school radio club in North America. You haven't mentioned that on the show, but I will. Your club has won School Club Roundup more than any other club that I've ever heard of. Your students have written QST articles about DXing. They've led DXing activities. So last year I wrote and said, Neil, why don't you bring a few students to Contest University? And let's see if we can't find some scholarships so that it doesn't cost them anything to come. Because like you, if we don't see more younger people in the hobby, this hobby is going to die off. You and I are relatively young among active DXers and contesters, Neil. The average age is, unfortunately, for the DX community in the 60s or mid to late 60s. And so we need to revitalize the hobby a bit. And what better place to start than with contesting, which fits the interest, the gaming interest, and the social interest of today's young people, teenagers and college students. And you brought along several high school students to Contest University, and they were the talk of the Contest U, the hit of the Contest U, and they really sparked a lot of enthusiasm. I was really amazed to see the adults like us who were just excited to see some young people there. And, of course, we need to thank Tim Duffy and the Northern California DX Foundation for providing the scholarships to allow you and the team to come.
Absolutely.
But I said, why don't you guys go home and see if you can't get DXCC with either the CQ Worldwide RTTY or Sideband Contest? Because I think you can do it after Contest University. And I'll be darned, I remember I was operating at VP5S in the Caribbean for CQ Worldwide Sideband, and K9SOU works me on several bands, and the next thing I know, your club has achieved DXCC in one weekend. And I know before the show you were telling me that you worked Shanghai, China, so you got you covered a lot of distance from Bloomington, Indiana, off 100 watts and a little radio and a 2-element Yagi. You guys did a phenomenal job, and your students who did that, Ryan and his teammates, are to be commended for all that they did to achieve DXCC in a weekend. For some of us, it takes decades to get DXCC, and your club did it in, about 24 hours?
Yeah, not quite. I think it ended up being 17 hours that we got that. So we got our logs back yesterday and had 3 mistakes. So I was very proud of those kids, for especially Ryan. Ryan did almost all of it by himself. Really proud of them for doing that. And that was right after School Club Roundup. We had a 1-minute break between School Club Roundup all week and CQ Worldwide. And so that was a long week, but very productive.
That is amazing. And so that should be an inspiration to almost anybody listening to the show, either now or on replay, that contesting is a great way to get your DXCC totals up and to really finish off the countries you need for the basic ARRL awards.
Absolutely, and we're trying to finish up all of our confirmations. We hit 85 today, so we're just about there on the confirmations. Well, Scott had talked to his agent earlier about extending the time here, and his agent cleared him for 45 minutes. It looks like we're going to use all of it. So we're going to take one last break, and then we'll come back, and then we are going to try the part that I'm scared about. We're going to take live calls. We're going to see how this works. We haven't overloaded the system yet, so I'm a little nervous about what's going to happen if it overloads. But here's how you can join us, how you can talk, and you can be doing this while we hear from one of our sponsors. You can Skype us. That's the best way to connect with us, is Skype. It sounds a whole lot better, and that's how Scott's joining us this evening. The name is Ham Talk Live, just Ham Talk Live, all one word, on Skype. We also have a phone number, and that is 812, the area code 812, NET HAM 1. Again, it's 812-NET-HAM1. If you don't have all the letters in front of you, that's 812-638-4261. And that will call into Skype as well and get you on the show. So if you have a question for me or for Scott, get ready to give us a call on one of those two things, and Ham Talk Live will return following this commercial message from the Ham Station. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by the Ham Station. For 35 years, the Ham Station has brought new and used radios, antennas, accessories, and equipment to the amateur radio community. Give Jeff or Dan a call at 1-800-729-4373 or order online at hamstation.com. Ham Station carries all the major brands like ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood. Shop from a wide selection of radio scanners, MFJ accessories, Heil Sound products, Mirage and Ameritron amplifiers, Cushcraft antennas, and more. Easy online shopping and fast shipping are waiting for you at hamstation.com or call 1-800-729-4373. The Ham Station, proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
And welcome back to Ham Talk Live. I'd like to thank the Ham Station for sponsoring the show tonight so we can bring you Ham Talk Live. Be sure to listen every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on hamtalklive.com. And if you miss the show, we do have a podcast that will be available shortly after. That's on the website, hamtalklive.com. It's also on Spreaker, which is our hosting service. And then we'll also have it uploaded to iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and it's available on TuneIn. So all kinds of ways to get a hold of the show. So if you have a chance and you can't catch us live, you can catch us on one of those. I'm Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, joined this evening by Dr. Scott Wright, K0MD. So right now we're going to give this live call thing a try. We're going to give you, the listener, a chance to participate in the show. If you have a question for Scott or myself, you can join us on Skype by connecting to Ham Talk Live, or you can join us by telephone. Again, number is 812-NET-HAM1, 812-NET-HAM1, or Skype at Ham Talk Live. Keep in mind, this is live radio, so if something happens and I can't stop it, we're just going to have to live with it. So we'll do the best we can to keep things family friendly and appropriate, but we can't guarantee what people will do because it's live. So this is kind of the scary part, and hopefully we won't get any intentional QRM here. But anyway, give us a call right now. If the line is busy, try again whenever our current caller is finished, and we'll see if we can get you on here. So we'll see if we have any callers here. Let me open this up and see if we have anybody. Being the first show, don't know how many people are aware of it and ready to call in. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not seeing anything just yet, but we'll keep an eye on Skype here. Again, it's 812-NET-HAM1 or Ham Talk Live on Skype.
I've been impressed at the social media promotion of the show, Neil. I've probably gotten a dozen emails about people promoting the show on Twitter, so congratulations on all of that.
Yeah, the social media promotion's gone really well, and hopefully, as people kind of catch on, we'll have some more. And we do have a call right now, so we'll go ahead and give this a try. Hello, you're live on the air with Ham Talk Live.
Hi, Neil. It's Matt, W1MST. I had a great time listening to your show tonight and having a real good time hearing Scott's story.
Oh, thank you very much. You have a question for us?
I sure do. Tell me a little bit about how you've been able to pique the interest of the high school kids that you're serving at Bloomington.
Well, it's a little easier for me because I see those kids every day, and so I can work that into the chemistry curriculum, and so I demonstrate with a handheld what they can listen to, and so they can listen to drive-up windows, they can listen to, all kinds of things, and that seems to really spark their interest. And one of the things that I've always said, and Scott has done some of this too, he can chime in here, is that you really want to get them involved in radio, not necessarily study for the license test at the beginning. You want to get them into radio and get them interested in it first, and then they want to do it by themselves. Scott, you're the trustee there at an academy there in Minnesota. Is that your take on things?
I agree, Neil. I think that's a great way to do it. The last thing I think high school students or middle school students want to do is pass an exam, right? Study for an exam. But if you give them a way to have some fun with the hobby, they really do. And I've got a situation now among some seventh graders. I have my youngest child is a seventh grader, where one of the classmates wants to learn Morse code. And I think now I have 3 young men interested in perhaps learning Morse code, not necessarily getting a radio license, but they're intrigued by Morse code. So I'm going to spend the summer session with them doing some...
It's a way to pass secret messages.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That may be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know, but yeah, it's a way to do that. So, Matt, does that answer your question?
It sure does. Thanks, guys, so much, and really enjoying the show. Look forward to many more to come.
All
Thank
right.
you, Matt. Nice to hear you on.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. I've got about 2 minutes here, so we got to wrap things up, but we'll see if we've got one more, if we have another call. We'll see if we get anyone else. And if not, we will finish things up because we are just about out of time here. They give us 45 minutes on the Spreaker here, and we're
It's
just
passed
about
by
out
quickly.
of that.
Neil. The 45 minutes sure went by quickly. Rather than glad you upgraded it from 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes would have been way too short. So, well, I don't see any other calls coming in, so maybe we better go ahead and finish this up. But Scott, I want to thank you for coming on and being the first one and giving a test. And the call went well, so that was good. We didn't have any technical issues.
Well, Neil, I think you have a great series of programs lined up. I'm looking forward to hearing Don Wilbanks and Gary KN4AQ, who's got a great podcast, and also Craig Thompson, K9CT, and I think also you have Bob Alton, K4UEE, coming up. So
I do.
I'm just honored to be among a group of hams that you're interviewing who really have accomplished a lot. I'm not sure why you asked me to be on the show, but I'm delighted to be on it with you. And again, my congratulations to you, the Bloomington South Amateur Radio School Club, for all it has done. And I really hope to see you and a number of your school members at Contest University and the Dayton Hamvention in May.
Yep, we are looking forward to it, and appreciate you being on here to kind of put some perspective on things with the show and get us started on the right foot. So thank you so much for doing that. That'll wrap up this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. Be sure to join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week, my guest will be Don Wilbanks, AE5DW, from Amateur Radio Newsline and Ham Nation. And Don and I on the same show at the same time should be interesting, if you know Don. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So be sure to tune in. So for now, with Scott Wright, K0MD, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.